And what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Amped Up Show, October 3 of the year 2025. We got a big show to send you off into the weekend. I have Smackdown's numbers for this week. The rating is in. It is not good news for Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Paul Levesque, McMahon, and World Wrestling Entertainment. And even worse off, the attendance. The fans that are showing up to these events, or should I say no longer showing up to these events. I have numbers for the attendance of this week's SmackDown. And also, just like the rating, not good for WWE. And this is a new trend for the promotion. Seeing record declines, whether merchandise, ticket sales, ratings. They're not used to this. When Hunter Helmsley took control of WWE and started playing the role of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, business was booming because Vince McMahon set the table. Vince McMahon made the feast. And then he left. He said, good luck, I gave you everything you need to be successful. Vince McMahon gave them everything. Decades of work that Vince McMahon did via his hands. And he laid it all out when he sold to TKO and Endeavor. And handed the keys over to Helmsley. And just said, don't screw up. And in just 3 years, they're seeing record declines. But for those 3 years, man, they were riding the coattails of everything Vince McMahon created. They were riding that high, talking record revenue and business is booming. But wait till you hear what the blue brand is bringing in. And we already know what the red brand is bringing in over on Netflix. Record low viewership, and that is globally. Not to mention the nearly 800,000 hours watched, less than the week previous. It is a trend for WWE, a downward trend that I told you was inevitable if they were going to keep conducting business the way they were. Everybody wanted to turn a blind eye. Oh, they're fine, BC. They're recording record revenue financially, BC. They're saying business is great and it's booming, BC. Cody Rhodes has told us it's the best era ever, BC. The Rock told us that this is the best time ever for pro wrestling. So they're telling Hunter Helmsley and Nick Khan are telling us how much money they're making. BC, it's all good. No, BC was like, wait a second. No, this is down. This is going down. This is in the opposite direction. They can't sustain this. They won't sustain that. And when it's all said and done, we were right again, unit. Everything from merchandise to ticket sales to ratings, everything across the board is down. Everything that Vince McMahon created, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Paul Levesque McMahon, and TKO are burning to the ground. But right before they light the last match, they will sell to Saudi. And then we'll see what happens from there. But that's just your cold open teaser on the number. I'll give you the actual number SmackDown brought in and the attendance for this week's SmackDown, and you guys can come to your own conclusion and see just how bad it is for WWE. So they only have one of two options. They can keep going the same course they've been going and not listening to anybody, beating to their own drum, keep collecting every penny from any entity that'll give them a penny, and don't worry about the product, don't care about the product. You don't got any time to make the product good. The fans will show up. Whatever fans you have left, they will show up, tune in, and scream, this is awesome, no matter what. Keep doing business that way and see where it leads you. Or you can just change for the better. You can be forced to go to the office, right? Helmsley may have to stop going to the basketball games and seeing his buddy Tyrese Halliburton at the Pacer game and his buddy Pat McAfee. And going to Pat's show and doing his show and going to the Tonight Show and doing all the commercials for the PLEs and for all of WWE's pressers. Maybe Helmsley has to put himself into the office, and here's a wild concept. Maybe he has to actually get to work. Maybe he has to be creative. He's the chief of creative and content. He's the head of talent and relations. But he does nothing. I say this every single upload like a broken record. And will keep saying it until he goes into the office, shuts the door, and does work. Why is Raw and SmackDown losing this much in viewership by the week? Why are this many fans no longer showing up? BC has the answers. WWE don't want to hear it. I also have NXT's number for you guys, NXT this week. That's also equally bad. Maybe not equally, right? Blue brand and red brand, that's on another level of bad. But for NXT, this is bad because they have this little war going on. It was first called an invasion, now they're calling it a showdown. For political reasons, they couldn't use or chose not to use the invasion word. So they went to showdown, and it's with TNA versus NXT. And this is supposed to propel NXT's number and TNA's. Hopefully TNA can get to at least 250 to 300,000 viewers for their weekly show. And maybe NXT can finally get out of the 600s and cement themselves into the 700,000 in viewership, 700,000K plus. They were hoping that this, if anything, this would do it. Because usually they have to just bring in all of the main roster talent to crack 750 plus. So they were hoping that this storyline, this invasion, this showdown with TNA and NXT, this would create something really special. Fans would flock back in droves. Well, NXT did finally get out of the 600,000s. The unfortunate news is it wasn't upward. They didn't go to 700,000. So do the Steiner math. I'll have the number for you guys, and we'll talk about the drop in viewership and why this is really bad for NXT, and it backfired. They ended up finding out that nobody is really interested, or most fans are just not interested in NXT versus TNA. And that's not just BC saying that, the numbers are telling us this. We'll go over that as well. Also, we got another big announcement from AEW. I say that with slight humor, a little sarcasm, a touch. Some salt, some pepper, some sarcasm. AEW, man, Tony Khan's been on a little bit of a roll with his announcements lately. Again, slight sarcasm. Women's tag titles. I don't know if that's, AEW needs a couple, 2-3 things to really propel them right now. WWE is giving that. WWE has fumbled the ball. It's right there in front of AEW, but Tony Khan just doesn't want to pick the ball up. WWE fumbled. Tony Khan's like, what do I do with this? I just help run the Jaguars. I don't know how to play the game. So Helmsley's watching from afar like, that's right. You don't know how to play the game. It's all about the game. So Tony's like, how do I do? What do I pick it up? Where do I run? Do I run with it? WWE is fumbling nonstop. Tony Khan won't pick up the ball. So when he's making big moves, they're women's tag titles. Women's tag titles are not needed right now. They're just not. They're needed about as much as trios titles. They're not needed. More and more titles is not it's not the problem. Just like bringing back, right, their other big announcement this past Wednesday. They brought back Andrade, another mid-carder from WWE, who was already at AEW before. He's been at WWE a couple times. Now he's been at AEW a couple times. He flip-flops every year, it seems. And the needle never moves. I take no joy in saying that. I like Andrade. I want to be invested. It's just, and we know he's a good wrestler, quote, but everybody's a good wrestler these days, mostly. Good wrestling and good wrestling matches is no promotion's problem. You're going to get good wrestling at the local bingo hall every day of the week, twice on Sunday. So Andrade's a good hand. Yay! What's he doing for the product? You're telling me we now have to watch 15-minute Andrade matches on Wednesday Night Dynamite. That's going to flock viewers over to you. I'm just being honest with you. Andrade ain't going to move a needle. If he didn't the first time around, which he didn't, what makes you think he's going to the second time around when you're already lost another 250,000 viewers from the first time he was there? So women's tag titles, that's the big announcement. And then Andrade comes back. That's the big surprise, Andrade. So wait till you hear the new big announcement. This is over for Full Gear. That's right. 2 big returns, guys. Again, slight sarcasm. It's called a cold open teaser for a reason. We'll get to that coming up in the show as well. TK's new big surprise. 2 big returns, supposedly, at Full Gear. We're going to go back to TNA, too. I aforementioned them just recently when talking NXT. But TNA's president, Carlos Silva, is confirming new broadcast negotiations for the U.S. and elsewhere. What timing, right? They're doing this big thing with NXT, or what was supposed to be this big invasion angle with NXT, right around the same time that they're searching for a new broadcast home. Think about that, guys. Think about what BC's been telling you. Think about all of what is happening right now, right? If you're starting to hear Vincent Kennedy McMahon's music playing your dome piece, yeah, you're on the right track. We'll talk about it coming up. All right, guys, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off here, man. Smackdown pulled a 1.2 sem-odd. A 1.2 that is down from their 1.4 average, their new average, 1.4, which is incredibly low and horrible in its own right, in and of itself. But a 1.2 down from their 1.3 last week. So a 1.2, they're creeping toward that 1 million. And I told you guys for the longest of time, expect this. Because WWE is showing you that they don't care to change. If you're not going to invest in larger-than-life characters, create them. And create storylines with an S at the end, not just 1 or 2. Storylines so that top to bottom, we are watching a complete wrestling show that has us captivated. We're not just enjoying pro wrestling. I said all the time, you can enjoy a banana split, you can enjoy a night with the old lady. You want to be captivated by your pro wrestling show. That's what made us fall in love with pro wrestling. We're captivated by it. There's nothing like it, right? Sure, if you're not going to pay attention to your own product and give it the care and put in the effort that it needs, then it's only going to go one way, and that's backwards. I've been telling you guys for months and even years. And I said, don't be shocked if one day they start hitting that 1 million mark. A lot of fans would scoff at that, right? Oh, BC, they might take hits here and there, but BC, they're not going to hit 1 million in viewership, man. They've been around too long. Helmsley knows what he's doing. They won't let it get that bad, BC. I said, no, there's no evidence of that. The only evidence we have is that they are going to get to 1 million, and unfortunately, even lower. Because nobody in that company is showing that they're willing to change or do anything to change. And here we are. Remember, it was just a month ago they hit a 1.1. I think it was like a holiday weekend, and they were taped because they were outside the U.S. So a lot of fans were giving those excuses and they were no-selling it. Oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, BC, no, they were going into the holiday and they were out of the country. It was taped. To which BC's like, well, isn't that the problem? You can't even afford a holiday or a tape show because you're going to get to a 1.1? You're going to get to a 1.1 if you have a holiday or a tape show. So what you're saying is you can't even afford a holiday these days. The pro wrestling show is so bad that you cannot be taped, you cannot fall on a holiday weekend, or you're going to go as low as a 1-1 and even lower. So that's the bigger issue. The fact that you got a 1-1 because of a tape show or a holiday. Because before that, you were at your average of a 1.4. What's the excuse? Why is your average only a 1.4? And now what are we seeing? 1.3s and now this week 1.2. What that's telling you is, if this keeps up, the new average will go to bare minimum 1.3 and even maybe 1.2. The average is starting to already lower. So what happens when you get another holiday or a tape show, guys? What do you think happens? You now hit that million. Or, could you imagine how this is going to look in the ratings? But it's coming. 975K or 950K. It sounds familiar, right? That's what AEW Dynamite was getting for months. They were around 950 to 975K. They just could not get over that hump to hit 1 million. It seemed like they were at 950 to 975 for so many months. And a lot of fans mocked them and made fun of, you're stuck at 9, you can't even hit 1 million. Well, what happens when WWE SmackDown hits that? Because that's where we're at. And if you think it's any better on Raw, domestically for the US, they pulled a 1.1. They pulled a 1.1 for last week. Domestically for the US on Monday Night Raw, 1.1. Globally, they were only at a 2.3. Remember when they were touting how they can now reach 700 million people? 698 million said no thank you. Less people are watching now than they did on cable. But when they were on cable, everyone went, well, nobody's watching anymore. Everybody is streaming. That's why the numbers are low. And now SmackDown sits at a 1.2. They should be thanking AJ Lee way more than they could ever imagine, because when she came back, they popped it over to a 1.5 sem-odd. Without AJ Lee, back to 1.4, 1.3, and now 1.2. But for WWE, it gets even worse because the attendance is down. And this is what they've touted for 3 years, right? Record sellouts and record revenue from the gate. All the fans that are showing up, and now they can, what the COO of TKO, Mark Shapiro, said, they can maximize the potential of every fan and what they'll spend. Maximize. In other words, he said that Vince McMahon priced for families, but we're going to charge 10, 20, 30 times the amount because we feel the fan is going to pay it. So they priced individuals out, they priced families out, they priced demographics out. They're bringing in the richest of the rich, or the people willing to pay it that have it. And they know that once they get them through the door, they're the ones that are going to pay for all the t-shirts, the merch, all of it. And they touted all of that revenue for 3 straight years, riding on the back of what Vince McMahon created for decades. And when Vince handed over the keys to the kingdom, WWE was riding on the name World Wrestling Entertainment. They clearly didn't pay attention to the product at all. That's more than evident from the shows. Nobody was paying attention to giving us a good product. No decision was being made with any purpose. There was no reasoning behind most of what we were seeing. No matter how small or big, right? Cody and Brock Lesnar is your big match throughout the summer. We never had a reason. Brock attacks him, and then they just fight for 3 months. And then they shake hands, hug it out, and Brock leaves at SummerSlam. What just happened the whole summer? In a nutshell, that was WWE the last 3 years. Nothing made sense. There was no purpose. They didn't care because they were too focused on how can we maximize what Vince already created. Let's try to get every penny right now. And when the ship starts to sink, we'll just sell it. I know, Saudi, for a good price, Saudi will take it from us. And that's what you started to see. Taking all the PLEs out of the US, outsource it to make a quick buck, and it worked. Charge the fans that are showing up to any of these events 10, 20 times the amount they were paying just 3 years ago, and it worked. Cut some more sly side deals with Saudi. 20 million here, 50 million there, bring a WrestleMania, collect another 200 to 300 mil. Hey, it worked. Record revenue. Business is booming because WWE financially is getting richer and richer. That doesn't mean business is booming for the fans or the product. All that means is that you are liquidating at every turn, no matter the cost. What you do when you do that is you're burning bridges. You're not paying attention to the product. You're cutting deals, but you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So you cut a deal with Netflix, you cut a deal with NBC Universal, you cut a deal with Fox, you cut a deal with ESPN. They're expecting you to hold up your end of the bargain. They want you to create a, no pun intended, but a dynamite show every single week. Problem is, they didn't do that. They took the check, cashed it, never looked back. And all of these entities, Fox, ESPN, Netflix, all of them, they're left footing the bill. They get nothing in return but a decline in all the numbers across the board. And then they're left like Fox. When Fox finally got rid of Smackdown, Fox said they never saw a return on their investment. How sad is that? WWE took all our money and we never got anything back. And Helmsley didn't care about giving them a good product. He already got the check. Nick Khan, TKO, Endeavor, now Silver Lake, they got the money. ESPN just found that out on their first event. Netflix found it out. They're not even done with their first year. They went from nearly $6 million. Everybody was interested. Hey, how's it going to be? And in less than a year, they've fallen all the way to 2-3. Yeah, you don't have to do your Steiner math. I'll tell you, that's more than half of what they started with gone. They said, deuces, we're out. This product sucks. You're burning bridges when you do business like this. Helmsley has done nothing but ride the wave that Vince McMahon created. Eventually, that wave is going to wear thin, and you're going to have to create your own waves. Helmsley can't do that. He knows that. So liquidate. And when it gets so damn low and the ship starts to sink, don't be shocked if you hear a Saudi deal sooner than expected. Because the ship is sinking very fast. SmackDown's already at a 1-2. Raw's already at a 1-1 domestically and a 2-3 globally. You can't possibly get any lower before these entities are going to try to get out of their deal. A loophole. Netflix is probably going to try to get out way before 5 years when they have the opt-out. I say 3 years tops. And right now, as you're listening to this, NBC, Universal, and those offices, they're probably furious at what WWE is doing to them. But the attendance, that's where they made bank, right? For 3 straight years, all you heard was record revenue, record sellout, another 12th Monday Night Raw sellout in a row, 15 SmackDown sellouts in a row. Every time you turned, there was Hunter Hearst Helmsley at a presser telling you that there's a new gate revenue. There's a new consecutive sellout record. There's a new record. And everybody started to go, wow, man, Helmsley is really taking WWE to new heights. And BC was like, wait, Helmsley's doing nothing. TKO is raising the prices that fans have to pay, so that's how they're making a chunk of their money. They raised the prices 20 times what they were 3 years ago. They're taking PLEs out of the States and bringing them to countries that don't get to see a lot of WWE. So yeah, they're going to show up and pay whatever WWE is asking. They're doing some dirty side business, skipping over manias, bringing them to Saudi Arabia so they can collect hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, financially, business will boom when you make those type of moves. But at what cost? All of that type of business that they're doing is eventually going to wear thin if your product isn't good. If you're not appeasing the appetite of your fan base. They're making all of these deals TKO the last 3 years. Nobody was paying attention to the product. Helmsley was supposed to be. But he was just right alongside Nick Khan and Mark Shapiro and all the other suits and ties the past 3 years. He's just another spoke on the wheel of TKO. He's maximizing his own benefits. He's playing the role of ambassador, spokesperson, acting as if he's a head board member, acting as if he's the president of the company. The problem is Helmsley is supposed to be the chief of creative content and talent relations. So who is paying attention to the product if Helmsley isn't the boss of it all? Nobody. So for 3 years, you heard all about this record revenue. But if you do a deep dive, you don't even got to take a deep dive. Go to the shallow end of it. And you'll see that they're just taking what Vince McMahon built and they're liquidating it. And I told you guys for 3 years that inevitably, when you do business like that, the other shoe is going to drop. And their numbers are going to go so far backwards, they're going to be forced to change because nobody else is going to give them a dime. So what does all that have to do with the attendance? Guys, you look at last year's Smackdown in Orlando. Maybe even the same time frame. But last year, Orlando's attendance, 14,000. 14K. This year, for that Smackdown, the same one that got the 1.2, 10,000 fans showed up. 10,000 paying fans. 4,000 gone. Nearly a third. Nearly a third. They were at 10,000. So what do you think happens when they go to Orlando next year? You think they stay at 10, or do you think they see an increase? Not if the product doesn't get better. Of course not. What do you think happens, man? These are called trajectory, and that's why I love numbers, statistics, and metrics, because you can always follow some type of pattern, or there's always a trajectory, right? And with WWE, the trajectory, unfortunately, for 3 years now, has been backwards. So that 10,000 of paying fans that showed up to Orlando is most likely going to be 7,000 to 8,000 in just 1 year's time frame. I'm not going to keep harping on this topic because it's kind of sad. I really wanted USA Network to get some type of return on their investment. They really wanted to keep the partnership with WWE because they've had it for so long. And they knew they could not invest in Raw anymore. That was just a sinking ship. How WWE got that money from Netflix? Netflix was hoping that was going to rejuvenate their live entertainment branding, and it did nothing. That dramatically backfired. And I will be surprised if Netflix keeps this deal past 3 years. They're going to try to find a legal loophole and get out within 3. I just know Netflix. I know how they operate, and this is unacceptable to them. But for USA, man, they thought that they could do something with Smackdown as long as Helmsley and WWE puts any type of effort into it. What they weren't banking on, though, what they weren't thinking about is that it's Helmsley. And he doesn't want to put any effort into this. And even if he did, Helmsley doesn't have a creative bone in his body. He doesn't. Hunter Hearst Helmsley is not creative. He's not a creative person, right? Former writer Vince Russo said that. He used to conduct business with these individuals. Some people had all these ideas. They would come up. Helmsley had nothing. All Helmsley had going for him is that he had Vince McMahon. He had his ear. He was up Vince's ass. He was in that office. That's the only thing Helmsley had because he had no ideas. You know, Bret Hart, you can say he's bitter and all you want, but Bret Hart didn't play any backstage politics or games backstage. And he gave his honest take. He said that he's just one of the least creative person I've ever been around. So, I mean, WWE was set up to fail anyway when Hunter Hearst Helmsley, who's just a talent, as harsh as that may sound, he's just a pro wrestler. And a lot of times that doesn't work when booking, right? Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, and a plethora of others. Sometimes it does. Kevin Sullivan was pretty good, for instance. But Paul Levesque McMahon is just a wrestler. He's a wrestler. And he was not pleasant to work with so many wrestlers, man. He'd say one thing to your face, and when you turned around, do a complete opposite. Now imagine somebody like that as now the boss. You thought he was bad politically backstage when he was a talent. Imagine now being the boss. So WWE was doomed to fail from the beginning when the keys were handed over to Helmsley. So many people thought it was going to be amazing. But remember what he did with NXT? They forget that, or just didn't know that was Dusty Rhodes and William Regal's NXT. That's a whole nother story. So for USA Network, I do feel for them, man. They really thought there was a chance to do something special with SmackDown, but WWE got too greedy, and they only cared about how to maximize every dollar and not maximize the fan experience and the product that we're watching. So I do feel bad for them. It's twofold, too, by the way, why you're seeing this many or this big of a drop in attendance. It's twofold, and I've been telling you guys this for months. This is what I mean. I don't BS my audience. Every word that I say, it's factual because I've done the research. I have my numbers in order, man. I'm doing my due diligence for you guys, and that's twofold. You're maximizing credit cards. When you do that, it's gaining interest, and when it garners that interest, that's a lot harder to pay off. So what you were willing to pay when WWE came to town, No matter what they were asking, you're like, I got that on my credit card. So you paid it. That took a chunk from your credit card, and then it added interest. So the next year when WWE comes around, you can't afford to go to that. I told you guys that was going to happen. Credit cards get maxed out. And on the flip side, fans are just all set. WWE's coming to town, and fans are like, I'm all set. That's it. That's what they're saying. I'm all set. Ain't no way I'm spending that. I did that last time. It wasn't all that great. Right? We sang a little bit. We yeeted. We did this, that. We yelled, "This is awesome" a bunch. Wasn't worth $10,000. So, there's several reasons why you're seeing this big drop. I want to stay with ratings for real quick, and I'll make this one quick, guys. NXT. They pulled in 572K. That is down from 617. That is a 45,000 viewer drop. That's really not good because this is their supposed to be big anyway, showdown with TNA in this big little mini war that they have going on between TNA Wrestling and NXT. So they were really hoping that NXT would finally get out of the 600s and get cemented into the 700,000 plus. They've gotten there before, a couple of times on their own. Mostly it's with main roster talent. But they were hoping that this would solidify them over 700,000 for consecutive weeks. And unfortunately, they got out of the 600,000s, but it wasn't the way they wanted. They went backwards. They went into the 500s, 572K. And that's with one of what is supposed to be one of their biggest storylines of the year with TNA Wrestling. So yeah, that is really not good for NXT. That is telling you that fans are saying we're all set with TNA NXT. It's not that interesting. And I got to tell you, I've been seeing some of the segments and keeping up with it, and it doesn't. Maybe it's 572,000 fans' cup of coffee. But I'm one of the majority where it's not my cup of coffee. So I'm not shocked that that's what they're pulling. Maybe it had legs to stand on if done pristinely. It's a little messy. It just is. And then the name alone, it was called Invasion, but for political reasons, they really couldn't have used that. So that was destined to be changed from the jump. I knew that was going to be the case. So it got switched over to Showdown. I don't know, man. Not good at all for NXT. Now, I'll stick to with TNA. I'll do the AEW big announcement, man. Sarcasm. I'll do that next. But I want to stick with TNA since we already are talking about it. TNA President Carlos Silva confirmed that they are entering new broadcast rights negotiations for the U.S. and elsewhere. Or should I say, is it any coincidence that WWE is going heavy with the TNA NXT partnership at the same time that TNA is trying to find a new broadcast home? This is a massive time for any pro wrestling promotion when it's time to negotiate new broadcast rights. And all of a sudden, they're going really heavy with this NXT WWE partnership. Of course, it's not a coincidence. Vincent Kennedy McMahon is waiting for the right time. I've been right on every move that Vince has made since I started this channel. Every move. When he was selling WWE, when nobody else thought it would, not for years, BC, or I'm not thinking that's anything, BC. No, I've told you, from the smallest things where WWE headquarters, they're tidying up and they're getting rid of some departments, and everybody's like, that's just a business move, trying to save some money. Yes, why? These are moves you make when you're about to sell. So when it's time to sell, potential buyers are going to see how tidy you are. You're a clean company. All you got to do is drop down the check. Everything is ready to go for you. A well-oiled machine. So, believe me when I say, at least the plan anyway. Nothing is confirmed until it actually comes to fruition. I understand that. But do the math, man. Or at least do your due diligence. Vince McMahon created this new company several months ago. Right? This new entertainment juggernaut. And it's going to have all of these things underneath their umbrellas, right? What do you this would fit perfect. It will not cost Vince much at all. This is pennies on the dollar. This is peanuts for Vince McMahon. You're talking about TNA. They get about 200,000 viewership a week, tops. I might be being generous. I believe Collision beats them. which is a secondary AEW weekend show. So it cost him nothing, and it's what we call a portfolio filler. This is just something in his belt, right? He might do some things with boxing. He might try to get back in the movie business. But TNA wrestling would be a good little portfolio file. And everything that TNA's been doing, everything that WWE has been doing, has been setting that up. So, yeah, whether they get the broadcast deal with Vince or before, it doesn't matter. Vince McMahon is waiting for the right time. I think he wants to get this Janelle Grant thing behind him. And then once that is, wow, man, the cuffs are off. Literally and figuratively for Vince. But the cuffs will be off and he will be off to the races, man. And I'm telling you right now, TNA will be purchased by Vincent Kennedy McMahon. If not, the only other way this goes down, and I think this is going to happen within the next year, within the next 365 days, WWE will end up owning it. But eventually, it'll end up in the hands of Vincent Kennedy. WWE will end up in the hands of Saudi. Wouldn't it be interesting if Vince and Saudi have some type of deal? So anyway, that's the big TNA news over there as well. New broadcast rights negotiations. This is a big time, and WWE is well aware, and that's why you're seeing this heavy showdown between the two promotions. All right, let's go over to the big announcement with AEW for Full Gear. 2 big returns. You guys ready for this? Now, you know the other 2 big announcements, right? AEW needs a spark, right? WWE is fumbling the ball left and right, but Tony Khan doesn't want to pick up the ball. The quarterback for the other team is throwing interceptions. The only problem is the cornerback for AEW doesn't want to catch the interceptions. So the ball is staying in the possession of the offense. Why? The defense needs to pick it up, become the offense. But Tony Khan doesn't want to do it. So the big announcements have been women's tag titles. They need those like they needed trios titles. They don't. That didn't bring anybody to the viewing yard. Nobody's watching AEW because of trios titles, and they're not going to watch because of women's tag titles. So then, what if we bring back Andrade? Yes, we're going to take TV time every Wednesday for Andrade, because his personality and his charisma is top tier next level. Everybody's, when you're thinking larger than life characters and personalities and why do I want to watch something for 15, 20, 25 minutes, you're thinking Andrade! That charisma and personality, that mid-carder. Because it worked so wonderfully the first time for WWE. They brought him back a second time and it worked even less. It failed even more, I should say. AEW had him. It didn't work. Didn't move the needle, but backwards. So what do? Just like WWE, they bring him back a second time. What are we doing? What is Andrade supposed to add to the show? Good wrestling, Beasley. Great. Awesome. Another good wrestler putting on a good wrestling match. Yay, please. I know. AEW's where the best wrestle. And that's why they're bringing in 2 big returns for Full Gear. You guys ready for this? Big Boom AJ and Big Justice. Now, I don't know which is which. These are 2 Costco people from what I am told. I'm probably butchering this, and I don't even care to do the research on it. This is one of those subjects I don't care to do the research. But they're Costco reviewers, I believe. If I'm off, it's not by much. They've been on AEW television before. They've had a match before. I don't know which one is. I think it's a dad and a son. And the son is like young. He's like a son. He's not even 18, I believe. Or maybe, I don't know. But he's gotten physical. He's knocked out wrestlers. I think Trent Beretta got knocked out once. I think he's even hit a spear. So you talk about goofy. You got a kid knocking out a wrestler with a spear. So I don't know which one is Big Boom AJ and which one is Big Justice. But I'll call them the Costco Combo. The tag team, Costco Combo, is coming back to AEW for Full Gear. They made that announcement. Tony Khan made it official. So, there you go, man. Are you guys ready to buy Full Gear, man? Big Justice and Big Boom AJ. It's where the best wrestle. Women's tag titles, Andrade, Big Justice, and Big Boom AJ. And then you wonder why you're stuck in the 600,000s for viewers. I don't have the AEW number, by the way. That'll be coming out probably hours after this recording. You guys will have the number when this gets up to you guys, actually. So if you guys want to jot it down below, that's totally fine. If the number is even out by the time you are listening to this podcast. But I don't have AEW's number. But usually they're stuck in the 600,000s. You know, on a good week. I mean, it was their 6-year anniversary, heavily promoted. So would I be shocked if they pulled a 7 to a 750? Kind of, actually, because they'll take that and run like they just robbed the bank. They won't look back. For them, that's a good number right now. Take the 7 to 750. So I wouldn't be too shocked, though, because it's a heavily promoted 6-year anniversary show. But usually they're trying to get out of that 600,000 in viewership. Some of these moves, you guys are thinking they're just little. Oh, BC, it's just Andrade, man. He's going to be part of the Don Callis. I know, there's 100 people in the Don Callis family. We don't need any more. And no. What is going to help them is not a 20-minute Andrade match on Wednesday Night Dynamite. It's not, guys. We need personality, charisma, larger than life. They have enough They have 175 talents in AEW. Do you realize that? There was no need to bring back Andrade. None. Women's tag titles. No. First, just utilize the titles in the women's division correctly first. Down the road, when business is booming, ratings are up, and everyone's on the same page, then you start to introduce titles like that. And Big Boom AJ and Big Justice, it's no harm, no foul, BC. It's just a little bit of fun. It's for some laughs, BC. It's for some laughs. All right. Yeah, let's watch some AEW talent get speared by Big Boom AJ and Big Justice, the Costco combo. And then they'll go back to reviewing cookies in aisle 5 of Costco. I want to end the podcast, end this amped up show with Booker T, man. Some props for being honest about the botch last week with Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, and that referee. Horrible botch. And BC told you, man. BC said that's unacceptable. I flipped out in that review. I forgot what the headline actually said in the thumbnail that I had. I believe it was "This botch can't happen." That was the thumbnail. Big bold letters. This botch can't happen. Can't happen. It's unacceptable. Because that's the biggest magic trick that you can't expose. The referee cannot stop a count when somebody is clearly not moving. 1, 2, 3. That's the job of the referee. And the referee stops, says 2, when the whole world saw that the person being pinned didn't even move, didn't even flinch, didn't even sneeze, didn't blink. I mean, once the referee does that, I mean, the whole magic trick is done. The show is over. And I told you guys, usually in these scenarios, the talent will always come to the defense of their peers. But in this case, Booker T was just gave blunt honesty. Booker said, and I quote, "The only thing that they're going to remember is the finish. Was it a botch? Heck yeah, it was a botch. But with that kind of stuff, that can't happen on live television," end quote. I love that, man. It may seem simplistic, but you do not hear that so raw from somebody who was also collecting a WWE paycheck. To just come right out and go, all of this talk in the community, was it a botch? Heck yeah, it was a botch. Not only that, but that's the only thing they're going to remember from that match. And not only that, he says that cannot happen on live television. It just can't happen. Sound familiar? Every single thing that Booker is admitting. Blunt honesty is everything I said in that review. It's just so good to have because BC said it because I know it's the truth. I've been in that ring. I have friends that are traveling the world in those rings. I know which tricks you cannot expose. That's why I am so hard on this Unreal show. It may seem like a harmless little show, right? Oh, it's basically, it's just to know Dimitri a little bit more, right? Rhea Ripley, Dimitri. getting to see their softer side. Basically, Charlie and Ashley. And yeah, I mean, they're talking about their matches a little bit, but it's not too bad, BC. No, it's exposing too much. We're seeing the producers call the entire match from the back. What more do you need to see? You're exposing all the tricks. The one main one that you can't is the referee pulling a count. Which, oops, we saw that on live television. I know when I spoke those words in that review how true they were, but to hear that from a talent in that company getting a WWE paycheck, very cool. Because only then can we create real change, man. When inside those walls they're saying that's unacceptable, then that's when, I don't know, maybe something like the rule that Helmsley has in place for referees, maybe that has to be changed back to the Vince McMahon rule. And if you're not familiar with that, maybe you didn't hear the recent uploads because we've been talking about it. Vince McMahon had a rule where no matter what, the referee counts to 3. If the talent being pinned doesn't get their arm up, their shoulder up quick enough, or just forgets, tough shit. If they're a champion, they just lost their titles. I have seen titles change hands due to talent's mistakes. They didn't kick out in time. Or just forgot. And Vince's rule is you do not expose the business. You do not put the business and the company in a vulnerable state like that. That's your screw up. And if it costs you a title in the process, that's how it goes. But when Helmsley took control, he kiboshed that rule. And he implemented the new rule, which is the finish is the finish. And when we say go home, that's when you count. So everything before that, make sure that you pull your count. That's what he's telling his refs. So the refs pull their count. What happens is you're seeing wrestlers left and right forget their spots, not kick out, forget to kick out too late. I'm not even just talking about this Friday. We've seen it nonstop. One of the most notable, Seth Rollins pinning Damian Priest on a pay-per-view. I think it was Money in the Bank. And Priest is taking a nap. And the referee just says, 1, 2, 2, 2. No, it wasn't. You could count to 25. Damian Priest is snoring. We're seeing it left and right because Helmsley refuses to admit he's wrong and change the rule. So, it's pretty cool, man. When people inside the company can start saying what BC is, and the Amplified unit is saying, maybe we can create real change that'll be for the betterment of the company, the product, for all of us. That's been amped up for the 3rd of October of the year 2025. Thanks for hanging with BC for a little bit. Now, the Blue Brand will take center stage later this evening for Smackdown. We'll see what they produce. And BC will be right back with you this weekend for the Smackdown review. Until next time, and there will be that next time, BC and the unit were saying, check you. Salute.